Make sure you watch this video to the very end so you can find out exactly how you can win your very own Quadmula frame of your choice. I'm sure that plenty of you guys know already that I have Quadmula as a sponsor, and that is incredibly exciting to me for a very good reason. But today I kind of want to go into the details of why that is and why I think it's something that you guys should definitely consider if you're looking into a new frame. Coming from the perspective of a person who's borderline OCD perfectionist, it really matters to me that I have a quad that I can really trust as far as durability and performance. But most of all, I have a particular style that I really do care about, and I've been trying to hone my skills over the time that I've been flying. But it all revolves around not having to rely on any stabilization whatsoever and being able to get the best possible tune and best flight feel and performance out of a quad. I want to address a few questions that I've been getting from the community in regards to people who have been showing a lot of interest in this frame, and just put this information out there so I can refer to this video instead of having to answer those questions over and over. But I really want to set this story straight so you guys can see it from my perspective and understand what I'm talking about when I give these answers. As you probably know, I'm not the kind of person who's just going to talk out my ass. I either try to prove it to you with my flight performance and my skill, or I try to show you in actually visually displaying what it is that I'm seeing so that you can make your own conclusion. Many of you guys may not know this, but the team behind Quadmula has been working on frame design and really perfecting their concepts and features that they want to incorporate into their final product for about 6 years now. A lot of the features and benefits that you get from having this frame come from just a lot of time spent on experimenting and perfecting exactly what they were looking for, a perfect balance between performance and durability. The Apex has a really great reputation for a very good reason. It's designed by ImpulseRC, and they've been in the hobby for a long time doing a lot of really good things for a while now, and it's also been in part designed with Mr. Steele's input, and that dude is not only a phenomenal pilot, but he definitely knows what he's talking about. So yeah, there's a really good reason why I want to compare the Apex to the Quadmula Siren F5 Split. So let's go ahead and hop into the side-by-side and I'm going to show you exactly why I think Quadmula frame should be a consideration for your next build. The first topic that I want to address in regard to the Quadmula frame is its durability. It's hands down the most common question I get asked regularly from a lot of people who are interested in the frame but are a little bit hesitant, and it was honestly my first concern as well. I was immediately intrigued by Quadmula's designs, and I honestly think that this quad came together beautifully when I first got it, but I was like, there's no way that this thing is going to be able to handle the abuse that I want to put it through. So I therefore started flying it in locations that I don't normally fly, like really hard things like concrete, metal everywhere. I flew it in a lot of schools and anywhere that I could possibly try to put it to the test. And I did a lot of crazy stuff to try to see if I can try to get it to break. And I ended up getting some great footage, but I didn't actually break anything. The best thing that I was able to do is I did get a slight crack on the arm. It was something that actually wasn't noticeable and it was still flying perfectly fine. I did swap the arm out because I did have some spares. And for as hard as I love to fly, I'm really surprised I actually haven't really broken anything yet. And that's pretty impressive considering that it feels like every time I go out, I'm trying to go out with the purpose of seeing if I can break it, and I just haven't. I did work with my friend Mark McCollum to help design this session mount for this quad, and I think it's a phenomenal choice because if you're doing any sort of real freestyle, you definitely want to have a nice stable mount. And this one in particular is phenomenal. It's actually the same exact session mount that I use for my Apex. I think that this mount is phenomenal and hands down the best mount out there for a session and this frame. I wanted to incorporate that same design for the Quadmula frame. Looking at these two quads side by side, the Apex has 5.5mm arms and the Quadmula frame has 5mm arms. But if you look at the arms next to each other, you can see that not only are these arms wider, especially where it matters, coming right into the frame there. Just look at the carbon up close and you'll see that the entire quad is made out of this style of carbon. This is a higher quality level of carbon that's actually made in a lattice formation, the way that everything is woven, all the layers. And this absolutely lends itself to more rigidity and a lot more durability, despite the fact that the actual thickness of the arm is a little bit less than what you see on something like an Apex. On most other frames, including the Apex, if you look at the way the carbon is laid out, it's laid out in a perpendicular parallel configuration, and that's just how it's woven all the way through, which sort of lends itself, I'm sure plenty of you probably also experienced this, but when it breaks perfectly right there in a nice straight line, and that's something that is a downside of having this style of carbon in your frames. In regards to the hardware that's being used, all their standoffs are made out of 7075 aluminum, so it's a very lightweight, very durable aluminum that you're going to want to use in regards of any frame that you're looking at flying, but also their hardware overall is incredibly good quality, and I haven't stripped anything out yet, which is something that has definitely gotten on my damn nerves before. I've stripped out a lot of the hardware that's being used on the Vega frames. In fact, you can see all the ones that have been replaced because they've been stripped out over time. And I've definitely done the same thing to Apex frames for whatever reason. I tend to sort of strip out some of these and I have to swap them out regularly. It's an issue that I've definitely run into, but I have not had that issue just yet with this frame. Quadmula did go with countersunk screws for the top plate, which some people might think that that's an issue for durability. They went down that path instead for the protection of the battery. You don't want a round head screw that's going to possibly jab into one of the cells and damage it. It's a lot cheaper to replace a top plate than it is a battery, so that's why they went down that path. But in my testing, which I do a lot of Matty style tricks and trippy tricks that will possibly damage this thing, I have not broken anything so far on the top plate. The best I've done is, if you look right here, there's a little bit of a chip on that little end right there, but it actually didn't break anything. It's not cracked even. So I think that really is a big factor because they are using good quality carbon. Here on the bottom, they actually have round head screws here, and then in the front, of course, they've got these big old honkers that are protecting that. But even if you don't have the front bumper and you run it without the front bumper, they have round head screws for the bottom portion. The next thing I want to talk about is quality. So I'm going to actually show you a few of these pieces, and so you can see for yourself. Overall, all of their pieces are chamfered. I don't even know how to say that word. It's a stupid word, but it basically means that all the edges of the carbon are nicely rounded. It's much better because it's a lot less likely for it to take a hit and then become delaminated or fracture or kind of start to splinter or anything like that. Apex, of course, does not come that way. They do give you a file that you can do it yourself, which is kind of a pain in the butt considering how much money you spend on this quad, but it is what it is. The only other company that I've tried that I really appreciate as far as a level of quality of their carbon is the Vega frames. And they do a really excellent job over there at Vega to kind of do that with their more luxury frames, which is, this is the Spando, this is a more luxury frame. They don't do that with the Vega 1, but this is more of a budget style frame that they offer. But considering that you're only paying $75 for this Quadmula frame and you get that feature, that's pretty dope. This is just a quick look at what you actually get when you order a Quadmula frame. It comes in this nice plastic durable canister. It's then bubble wrapped and the carbon's protected, rubber band together nice and neatly. And then the hardware is pretty cool because it's all individually wrapped wherever it sort of applies to. Like, this is the PS3 hardware that you're going to use and the screws you're going to want to use to mount the camera mount, which is included. 2 caps. If you haven't flown a quad that uses 2 caps, you're totally missing out. Definitely try this out because it feels amazing. All the hardware is individually wrapped for things like, this is the frame hardware, this is the top plate hardware, which also includes the camera plate stuff that you're going to want to use for the camera. Mounting for motors, so if you want to use these hardware for your motor mounting, you get your standoffs. This is the stack hardware, which is included in all Quadmula frames, which uses a really unique design with an M2 screw covered in like a PVC tubing, which helps with shock absorption and vibration dampening, which helps you get a really phenomenal tune. I haven't had any issues yet with the fact that this is an M2 screw as opposed to an M3 screw in regards to durability. I did decide to go ahead and on my 30x30 stack, I did end up putting M2 nuts on the top there, as opposed to using this style of fastener that they include. This is the Siren F5 Split Mini. This particular frame is still a 5-inch, but it's designed around using a 20x20 stack as opposed to a 30x30 stack. Everything on this frame is just slightly smaller compared to the standard Siren F5 Split. And in this particular case with the 20x20 stack, those fasteners have been perfectly fine for me. I haven't had the need to put any M2 nuts on those. This is the only camera mount I have right now that fits for this frame. I need to have Mark design me a session mount for this frame in particular because it's a slightly different size than that one. Yeah, so thanks Fred for the camera mount for the Hero 8. I haven't flown with a full-size GoPro in a while, so it's actually kind of nice having one that can fly a full-size GoPro and do it really well. Another really cool design feature is how they decided to go with their arms. It uses this C-lock mechanism where you have a key and it locks right into place nice and perfectly. It allows for incredibly good resonance as well as stiffness and just really good durability overall. If you want to swap out an arm, all you have to do is take out that one screw and loosen that guy. You'll be able to remove the old arm and put a new one in and bam, tighten it up and you're good to go. That was something I was really excited about with the Apex when I first started building with this quad, was how easy it was to swap out an arm by just removing 2 screws. In the case of the Quadmula, you're only removing 1 screw and loosening the other to get the arm out and in. But with something like a Vega Spando or any Vega frame that I've used so far, which is the Spando and the 1, and this is something I've seen in other frame design too, you actually have to remove this screw, which is not a big deal. This second screw is a big pain in the ass because this actually goes all the way through and it's the actual stack screw, which makes it a bit tricky if you're trying to remove that guy. And then I would oftentimes have to remove this third screw and even the standoff to kind of get it out of the way, just the way that the arm locked into place. And that was a big pain in the butt. So I was super excited about this idea and I was really happy for the fact that it actually is incredibly stiff and has no effect, as far as I can see, on resonance characteristics or vibrations. Throughout the frame, and anytime you're going to be mounting anything that's 3D printed, Quadmula has come up with this spacer, which they call a PS3 Spacer, and it uses a countersunk screw that fits nice and flush in there perfectly. And with this, anything that you're going to be mounting that's 3D printed, which is normally a little bit malleable, you're not going to have that problem that you have with every other frame where the screw starts to go through it. That's true with, doesn't matter what 3D print you use, a lot of times I end up having to use these big ass washers to keep that from happening. And that's used throughout the build, whether it's the arm guards, it's the front chin thing, whether it's the camera mounting, it's all designed that way. And I think it's so awesome because you can actually tighten it all the way down and get a nice, secure, tight screw instead of having it kind of loose, which also tends to add to resonance and vibration factors. So this is something that came up the other day when I was doing a build, and I thought it was really awesome. I didn't even notice it until I actually ran into this. But if you're going to be mounting, let's say, a 19mm camera versus a 20mm camera, you can use the same camera plate, and all you have to do is just flip it over. It's pretty sick because if you notice, there's a little ledge which allows it to either sit in further or closer depending on how you flip the carbon. And yeah, it's a pretty dope little design feature that I thought was pretty unique. The last thing I want to talk about is flight performance. All the features we've already discussed in regards to things that are going to lower the amount of vibration and noise resonance that you would normally see on a quad that just don't happen here are going to help you to get a really solid tune. You don't have to use nearly as much filtering, and you can really push those PID gains up to get an excellent performing quad. You add that together with the quality carbon that's being used, it's going to improve the stiffness and rigidity of the quad, so you're going to have less torsion nodes as the quad is flying through the air, which is going to only help you feel more stable, and the quad's going to fly much better. They do use a Squashed X design, which is going to feel really similar to an Apex because the Apex uses the same design style, but this is slightly wider, which is going to make it feel a little bit more stable in the air, and it allows you to use slightly bigger props if you'd like. You can use up to 5.5 inch on this. I'm using 4.9 inch is what you see here. But yeah, the way that it feels with its low center of gravity, which is very similar to an Apex, which also has a pretty low center of gravity, it just feels really smooth on the axis when you're trying to do flips and rolls. And yeah, overall the flight performance, the feel, you'd have to try it yourself to know exactly what I'm talking about, but damn, it feels so good and so controlled. This right here is a pretty important design feature, which I think you guys definitely want to see. So this quad, even though it's slightly bigger as far as its overall size and its extra little added features like with the cool spacers that they use throughout and all the TPU that I've added. Now, both of these quads are not built with the intention of trying to make them as light as possible at all. However, I build is mostly factoring in how durable can the quad be and how well can it fly. That's what I care about most. However much it ends up weighing is whatever it is. But side by side, these are exactly the same right now. They both have a session on there with all the TPU and the props. The only thing missing is the battery, but you can just add your battery weight if you want to. The Apex comes in at 508 grams. And the Quadmula Siren F5 Split comes in at 493 grams. So that's a pretty decent difference. And of course, I'm sure you already know the power to weight ratio of a quad is going to really impact its overall performance. If you can get lighter with a lot more power, man, that thing is going to zip. And this is another one of those things I think just adds to the overall good feeling of its flight performance. One of the biggest benefits for the Apex is the fact that ImpulseRC has been around for a long time, so they do have a lot of vendors throughout the world if you're looking to buy any frames or replacement parts for it. And as of right now, if you wanted to order a Quadmula frame or any replacement parts, you'd have to do so through their website. It's really not so bad because if you happen to spend more than $100, you get free shipping. And in my experience, shipping takes typically between 5 to 10 business days. All replacement parts and hardware are available on their website in case you happen to need any of those. And I know for a fact they are in communication with vendors throughout the globe about carrying Quadmula products, which means in the not too distant future, you'll probably be able to order this thing either directly from the country you live in or nearby, which is going to reduce the shipping time and cost. I really hope this video helped answer any questions you may have had in regards to Quadmula frames or why you should consider them for your next build. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them down in the comments below. You know that I'm always going to do everything I can to answer every single one of them. And even though Quadmula was awesome enough to hook me up an affiliate link, I am not going to include it in this video in the description. I absolutely love this frame so freaking much, and I know you will too if you actually give it a try. I encourage you just to go over to their website, type it in yourself if you want, or Google it. And if you do decide to actually try one out and you get one, please let me know what your feedback is. One other incredible positive thing about Quadmula is they're really receptive to feedback. And that's something that I absolutely love and appreciate from them. And with that, you guys, I really appreciate y'all checking out the video. If you would please consider giving the video a like so other people in the community can check out the content as well, that'd be really awesome. You all have a wonderful day and happy flying. Thank you very much for watching this video to the very end. All you have to do to have your chance to win your very own Quadmula frame is to drop a comment below whatever your favorite feature is and exactly which frame you're excited most about trying out. Make sure that comment gets in there by October 31st midnight GMT and I will select a random winner. I will go ahead and pay for that frame and have it shipped directly to you so you can try it out yourself. And extra points if you follow me on Instagram. Just kidding. Later, guys.